if the boss tells the secretary, write this letter, it means she has to write this letter, or he has to write this letter. So they go ahead and they do it. So whether a command represents a plea, a recommendation, or an obligation will depend on who is talking to who. As a general principle, if a person of lower status is addressing a person of higher status, people are addressing an authority, their command is a plea. They're begging. They're asking, please do this. If people are of similar status and a command is given, then it means it's recommended. Or it could be a plea too. And when the higher authority is instructing the lower, then it means obligation. That is a basic principle in language. We assume that a higher authority instructing lower people of a lower status, that means it is obligatory. So if God is the higher authority, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's the higher authority, they instruct us to do something, we must assume that that instruction means obligation. Why? Because, as I said, even in our own dealings with language and the world, that's what we assume. If we didn't assume this, then we will have a state of confusion where the boss tells the secretary, do this, and the secretary stops to think, well, does the boss mean I must do this? Or is he just recommending that I do it? Or it's a, if I do it, don't do it, no problem, you know. If the secretary, or if those working for the manager, the boss, don't take commands to mean you must do it unless stated otherwise, then you have confusion. Systems cannot function. The world would fall apart. So according to language, we generally understand an instruction to mean obligation when it is given by a higher authority. But if that higher authority adds some other condition, some other qualifying statement, then this may shift that command to recommendation. So if the boss says, do this letter, write this letter next week, means you don't have to do it now. I mean, you could, if you want to do it now, that's good, but it's not obligatory for you to do it right now. Something you could do later. Or if he says, write this letter if you receive an instruction from that company or the other, and so on and so on. So it means it's not on you to do it unless you receive it. So if you don't receive that, then you don't have to do it at all. So these are qualifying statements and circumstances which now can modify a command to a lesser status of a recommendation or something to do possibly or possibly not. Now when we come back now to the issue of growing the beard, and we look in Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic book after the Quran, we find there Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in an authentic hadith or statement saying, grow your beards and trim your mustaches. Grow your beards and trim your mustaches. Distinguish yourself from the pagans in some other narrations. So he gives a direct command, grow your beards and trim your mustaches. So from that, because of the fact that there were no other circumstances to change that instruction from being obligation, then the correct understanding is that this is an obligation on all men. Of course, women, if you're growing a beard, Islam does permit you to remove it. I mean, that to that degree, because that's not a norm for a woman, right? Some women grow hairs, and if some may be heavier, some less. You know, if it's just a few little hairs here and there, of course, one doesn't necessarily need to worry about it. You can just, you know, use some form of coloring or whatever, which can just make it blend, and, you know, so you don't want to be plucking, picking, and all these kind of things on your face anyway. But if it starts to grow in heavy and it's disfiguring, making you look like a man, then most scholars hold that it is permissible for you to remove that hair. But for men, because this is supposed to be a symbol of their manhood, this is one of the distinguishing features between men and women, they're supposed to grow that beard. An obligation. If one does not grow the beard, one is in sin. Every time the person takes the razor to their face and removes the hair from their face, they are committing a sin. And this is something which scholars of the past held in such importance or esteem that in the courts, during the period of the Ottomans, etc., in the courts, the judge would not accept the witness of one who shaved his beard, because they felt that if a person would be so bold as to openly disobey the Prophet, because of course this is something open. I mean, of course, everybody maybe disobeys the Prophet in different ways in their lives, etc. They commit sins, etc. But sins are usually hidden. We hide it from others. But where a person is so bold as to just up in everybody's face, I am disobeying the Prophet, they say, well, can we trust such a person to give a true and honest witness? No. So they wouldn't accept his witness in the court. So the growing of the beard is obligatory. Even when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ met with two emissaries who were sent to him from the Christians, they came to him and they had these big handlebar mustaches and their beards were shaven. He turned away and didn't want to look at them, and they asked, why, what's wrong? And he asked, who told you to do this? He said, well, our Lord, our commander, he instructed us to do this. He said, well, my Lord instructed that the beards are grown and the mustaches trimmed. This is even dealing with people from other cultures. So we understand that the growing of the beard is an obligation on a Muslim man. In terms of how long should it grow, because of course the beard may grow down to your ankles, drag on the ground. Should you just grow it and don't cut it? Well, we then look to the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, what they understood, and it was their practice to trim their beard. Whatever was beyond the length of a fist, they would trim the beard. They let it grow. The maximum length was to that of a fist, or the shortest. They would shorten it to the length of a fist. What is beyond that, you know, they would trim. That was the sunnah of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So, from that, I hope, inshallah, it is clear to you, dear viewers, that it is obligatory on men to grow their beards. They may trim it if it is beyond the length of a fist, and shaving of the beards is a sin. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, In the Light.
Again, ruling on growing beard. Brothers love the beard. It's a long discussion. Look, let's just try to summarize. It's the easiest act of worship in Islam. If you think about it, when you do salah, you have to clean yourself from najasa. Then you have to make wudu. Then you have to go to the masjid. then you have to say takbirat, you have to memorize the Fatiha. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. So many things you have to do in order for you to what? To worship Allah. The beard is none of the above. You don't have to do anything.